Hello, and thank you for the invitation to contribute to this Cities and Regions Summit at the UN Environment Assembly. It's a pleasure to join you from the Institute for Housing and Urban Development Studies at Erasmus University in Rotterdam. I'd like to use this brief intervention to highlight two key points. Firstly, to show why cities need to be at the forefront of addressing climate change goals. Secondly, to give some indications of how they can do so. We will all be familiar with the expected impacts of climate change globally, and in urban areas in particular. The point I would like to emphasise in this regard is that as we accumulate more data and evidence, the picture becomes even clearer that the dynamic relationship between urbanisation and climate change creates even more significant risks for towns and cities and their residents. Population growth, spatial expansion, and transformation in the nature of the built environment combine with rising temperatures and more intense weather events in ways that make impacts more severe. The actions that are needed to reach the global goal on adaptation therefore need not only to take place in cities, but also to be inclusive, locally led, and facilitated by capable and appropriately resourced city and regional governments. We are all also familiar with the ways in which urban activities drive greenhouse gas emissions. Despite the fact that significant gains are being made in the efficiency of transportation and buildings, the growth of cities means that these are not being translated into actual reductions in emissions. The total floor area of buildings globally is expected to double by 2060, with most of this taking place in Asia and Africa. Even if these buildings are constructed and operated much more efficiently, the sheer scale of growth will be associated with growing emissions. While technical and financial solutions are needed to reach this global goal, these will only be successful if fundamental questions around urban planning and design, which are firmly within the remit of subnational and urban governments, are simultaneously addressed. So what can cities and regions do to contribute to these global climate goals? I expect this to be one of the central questions addressed by the Special Report on Climate Change in Cities, which will be the first product of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change 7th Assessment. Firstly, this will require taking climate change seriously in all aspects of urban design and management. Reducing risk and emissions can only be achieved through transformations in urban planning, building design and regulations, and transportation policy, as well as through specific climate-oriented policies and programmes. Secondly, it will require different forms of governance networks. Cities and regions will need to collaborate with other cities, both in close proximity and far away, and with governance institutions at the national and global levels. This is the only way to create a framework for policy interventions that are harmonised and complementary, rather than competing and fragmented. And thirdly, it will require new forms of partnerships within cities. Non-state actors, civil society organisations, and the private sector are greatly untapped sources of information and key partners in delivering new ways of creating cities that contribute to global ambitions. I hope that today's summit will contribute to shedding further light on some of these challenges and opportunities, and I hope the technology will allow me to contribute in real time to our subsequent discussions. Thank you, and have a good day.